Now we are going to talk about the debts of countries. There is no country in the world without debt. The United States owes around $38 trillion. The European Union owes about $14 trillion, and Japan around $9 trillion. Even oil-rich countries are in debt, for example, Saudi Arabia. And here comes an interesting question. If all countries are in debt, then who are they indebted to? The answer is quite surprising. Countries are indebted to themselves, meaning to the world. But this situation works differently, and not everyone benefits equally. Behind it lies something much more complex. Let's take a short journey into history. The foundation of today's massive debt system actually began hundreds of years ago during a war. In 1694, while England was at war with France, its gold reserves ran extremely low. The solution came from merchants engaged in trade. Trusting that England would collect taxes in the future, they lent money to the king and received regular interest payments in gold. The Bank of England was established to manage these issues. Through this system, England began spending money it didn't actually have. This was also the beginning of modern government bonds. Other major states found the system reasonable as well. The Netherlands, America, France. Being able to borrow became a symbol of power. Coming back to the present. Today, debt has become one of the world's major products. Every country is in debt. All banks lend money, and citizens have become both debtors and creditors at the same time. So who is on the other side of all this debt? The essence of the issue is best explained by the example of the United States. Of the U.S.'s $38 trillion of debt, about half, around $20 trillion, belongs to investors. Most of these American investors are insurance companies, banks, funds, and the U.S. Federal Reserve. Of course, foreigners also hold U.S. debt, and this amount is around $9 trillion. Japan and China are the biggest holders among them. So the statement the U.S. owes China is true, but that debt is only about 2% of the total. In summary, the U.S. owes most of its debt to its own internal system. Let's describe this as a global cycle. This global cycle isn't limited to America. It works the same way in other countries as well. Japan lends money to the U.S. The U.S., through the IMF, provides financing to countries in need. Europe lends to countries that want to grow and develop. And the countries that borrow transfer their resources and reserves back to developed countries. Every country holds the debts and receivables of others. The world resembles a giant IOU wheel. Is there an invisible boss behind this chain? The stock markets and financial markets, sovereign wealth funds, hedge funds, pension funds, central banks. They determine the cost at which countries can borrow, whether cheaply or at extremely high cost. Countries that lose trust collapse. Their currencies lose value. Their governments become unable to function. This is how the global system continues to operate. Trust forms the foundation of the system. Central banks create debt, large banks multiply it, merchants sell it, and people use it. The money circulating in the economy today essentially represents debt. Governments do not issue debt to pay it off, but to continuously renew it. The system is not built to end debt, but to ensure its continuity. It is not desired for governments to completely pay off their debt, because government bonds are safe assets for banks and funds. Without government bonds, the heart of the economy would stop. So what is the problem? The statement, "the world owes itself," is not always true. The returns of debt are not distributed equally across society. The people who pay taxes and the people who earn interest are not the same. This system operates between countries, but at the same time, it creates a flow between citizens, from the poor to the wealthy. When everything is functioning normally, this inequality is invisible. But when the system collapses, as in the examples of Greece, Argentina, and Sri Lanka, ordinary citizens suffer the most. Is debt truly real, or is it an illusion? In one sense, yes. In another sense, no. Debt is actually a system of contracts and trust. As long as this trust continues, the global system keeps running. When trust is shaken, we see how fragile the system really is. So overall, this is the situation. Debt is a promise that continues forever and is very difficult to uphold. Yet the world needs this impossible to keep promise to continue.